Hemshech Ayin Beis, Volume 1, we're in the middle of Discourse 16, Kisovei, Chapter 62. So in the last two chapters from the beginning of this discourse, after establishing that transcendence is also within existence everywhere, except it's concealed, he established that there are two primary makifim klolim. One is the desire, the ratzon kloli, and the makif, the transcendent that is before the tzimtzum. We call that thiru ilaah. And then there's the ratzon kloli, the all-encompassing desire that is a snapshot, a picture of the entire structure of existence, of all time and space. In the world called Adam Kadmon, the primordial or the primal man, which is that snapshot. And this is thiru tata, either the lower purity, the higher purity, or the lower shining and the higher shining. Depends how we translate the word thiru. And when the discussion now, in the midst of the discussion, what is the difference between these makifim and what is their impact on this, on our existence? So he's even gone to thiru ilaah yet. We've not addressed the higher makif, which is the desire in the 10 hidden spheres that where God envisions existence before the tzimtzum. We're talking now, we began to discuss what is the impact of ak, or thiru tata, the ratzon kloli, this all-encompassing desire for the structure, it's all in one snapshot. What is its impact? So in chapter 60 and 61, he's discussed so far three different impacts that Adam Kadmon has on us. The first was based on the verse, based on the prayer when we say, meaning that ak, because it's the first entity that emerges after the tzimtzum, it's extremely sensitive and sensitized to the divine, so it has a bittul. And because it's the all-encompassing picture of all of existence, that bittul is also affects all of existence. However, it's concealed. But that's an impact. Had it not existed, existence would not had we not had the world of ak, we would not have the potential even for such bittul. The world would be essentially disconnected. So now we have it concealed, and it's in a way that's detached, that's why it allows for free will. It doesn't affect us in a conscious way, but it's there, you can say, unconsciously in existence, this bittul. And the only way it does seep in, at the end of the chapter 60, he said, is through the fact that he says that the fact that we have life means that there's a little bittul, because a keli that has no bittul would not be able to receive at all energy. The fact that we receive energy, just even on the most basic level of pure life, means that we have something that is receptive to the divine. Even klippas have that. So though on a conscious level we don't feel the whole full subjugation and bittul, and that surrender and suspension of self to the higher presence is concealed, even though ak is transmitting it to us, to the point that we can even defy God's will, but something seeps in. That's about all of existence. In chapter 61, he said, Yeshlemer Oid, that now, according to the Likutei Torah Sazriya, he explains that within the souls of Israel, there's an additional element that comes from Adam Kadmon, from this level, and that is their bittul of what he calls the hidden love, kol nafshe kala, basically that ability to go mesiras nefesh, which is to give one's life because of one's connection to the source. We're not discussing, he makes very clear in the parentheses, the essential connection of a soul to its to God, to the essence of the divine. We're talking within existence, within ak, within the structure. There's a bittul, expression. Let's use the exact words. That's l'mayla mitam v'das, a super rational connection, faith. That's makif. We're not talking about permeating, we're not talking internalized, intellectually or emotionally. It's makif, and this comes from this level, mazlaya chazi, as he says, the mazel sees, and even higher than that. The faith is even higher than that. And it's an all equalizer, as we spoke earlier, if you recall, the difference between makif and primi, like the difference between oir and shefa, and the difference between rotzen and keiches. All those things, the difference between transcendence and immanence is similar to the difference between light or energy and shefa, the flow of transmission, and the difference between desire and faculties, the three key differences. One is that it's a transmission of substance in the shefa, and oir, there's no substance. Two, it doesn't impact the source, and three, it doesn't require effort. But also from that came out was the equalizer. Desire equalizes everything. Oir equalizes everything. Because it does, since it's not reckoning with the particular containers of a student, like shefa does, so oir is an equalizer. What is it, naveda? In this chapter he's basically explaining it's amunah, faith. It's an all equalizer. And that comes from akif, from the makif of atik. So here we have the manifestation of what we discussed earlier, so-called theoretically, is now, where does it express itself? It expresses itself in the all equalizing faith. And then he says, and another yeshlem, a third thing, that this is also the source of where in each one of the souls of Israel you have the Kabbalas El Malchus Shamayim, Hagdomas Nasil Nishma, which is the general acceptance, not just of an individual desire of God's, but the Baal HaRotzen, the bittul to the Baal HaRotzen, everything. So it's a total bittul to the source, which is higher than Kabbalah Sel Mitzvahs, which is a particular bittul to each particular mitzvah and the specific details. So here too we see the other thing of makif. Besides being an equalizer, we also see that there is well, actually this is also equalizer, but one more element here. That in Rotzen, we spoke in Rotzen, it doesn't matter, the Rotzen is just a reflection of the source. It's not relevant the place where it's being transmitted to. So here too, this type of eved is someone who's completely bottled to whatever the source says. So we have here also the element of oir as opposed to shefa. Shefa reckons and has to consider and tailor itself to each particular destination. Oir is in a sense indifferent to that. So here too, this bittul is a bittul that besides it's an equalizer, it also has that element that all it cares about is the reflection and the expression of the source. So we see now in Aveda here too, this is this second thing. And this is the third thing. So Ak has the impact on the entire existence, the bittul that's concealed. And the minimum that goes through is that we're a keli for divine life. We're a container for that. There's the effect on Amunah, faith. And now Kabbalah Soil, this service, the Eved that's completely dedicated. And he makes a point that this Kabbalah Soil is not about hardship and being compelled and forced, which interestingly also mirrors somewhat. If you recall earlier, we said that the example of the sun is not a good example for light, a divine light, because it's not willing, it's compelled. So here too, Kabbalah Soil hints to the same thing, that this type of thing is not compelled, it's not forced upon. We spoke about Rotzen imposes itself on all the faculties. Here, this has come because he's completely dedicated willingly to the source, to the divine, this Eved. And that's why there's a simcha in it and a pleasure. They spoke about the two levels. Not a joy because of what he's drawing down, because of the function. Like in Shefa, there's a function purpose. Here, the not a joy because what he's getting from it and what the worlds are getting from it, by him serving the divine. But the only thing is the tainug and simcha, that the high, divine desire is being fulfilled. And then on a higher level, he has pleasure from the pleasure of the master, which is even higher. So why is it called Kabbalah Soil? It's called Kabbalah Soil because even if it doesn't go according to his desires, the servants, he still does it. Because he's completely dedicated. So even if it's difficult for him, he does it. But it's not because this is someone is imposing itself. It's a willing thing. It's coming with simcha. And it's part of a higher process, but it's a complete dedication. That's the point. It's complete dedication. It's mesira nesina. That's the focus here. So we have here this third impact of Ak, that he's spoken about. So we have the bittul, general of the whole entire existence and the life that comes through that. You have Amunah and you have Kabbalah Seil, to the Baal HaRatzon, to the source of all Ritzenis. And this is what is all rooted in Ak. Ak is called Raivid, the called Raigan, the Ratzon of all Ratzon, desire of all desire. And that is the root of this Kabbalah Seil within each person. Okay. So now we continue on in chapter 62. 62. Page Kufta Zayin. 116. So v'kol zehu hu b'makif da'ak. All this is the makif. Is discussing the makif of Ak. As I just summed up, that Ak, which is a makif klali, I just saw a language from the Tzemach Tzedek writes. Interesting expression. Tzemach Tzedek is a very classic mimer. I would recommend it, highly recommend it to learn it, because it's like one of those few that give the picture, the map of the whole structure. It's known as Drush Gimel Minei Adam, meaning the Drush about the three types of Adam, the three types of, the Adam literally means humans, but really the three structures. Adam the Bria, Adam the Yetzira, Adam the Asiya, which is from Eitz Chaim, that there's three types of Adam. So it's printed today in Eira Teira in Yonim, page 77 and on. Very fundamental drush that's cited many places in Chassidus, Ayin Beis as well. And so there he uses an expression when he speaks about Ak. It's very, the Tzemach Tzedek, the precision of the Tzemach Tzedek is everything the language of the Alter Rebbe. He traces everything to the sources of the Alter Rebbe, which is unbelievable. Exactly when it was said, what year. He's the one that makes contradictions. He'll say that in the summer of 68, the Alter Rebbe said like this. In the summer of 65, he said otherwise. Remember, 68 and 65 then, we're talking about 5565, 5568. The Mittler Rebbe basically is Bina of Chachma, and he elaborates on the points that the Alter Rebbe makes. That Tzemach Tzedek grounds it back in the sources, everything is very precise. It would be fascinating to create such a map of Chassidus from the Alter Rebbe all the way to us, which I'm working on actually, while we're doing this, simultaneous to this work. So I've been referring to things. So he says he says when he speaks about Ak, it's just interesting, the expression was just an interesting expression. He says like this. Let me find it. I think it's chapter 5 or 6. Oh. Okay, it says like this. Finding it now. I just saw it. I'll tell it to you by heart, and then hopefully I find it inside here. He says that the Alter Rebbe would say that the Magid would say very often that Ak is Er Klali. That was like a Chiddush from the Magid. I just want to read that. Oh, here we go. Mashenken b'chinas er klali. Kein Omer Rabbeinu HaGadol nishmos eid b'shem harav HaMagid Mezrich nishmos eid shay meragle b'pumei b'chinas ako er klali. So when there's such a statement, it's like a strong statement. It's like he says that's how the Alter Rebbe said the name of the Magid. Meragle b'pumei it was meragle b'pumei means it was a convention. It would be a common expression that he would say, meraglim b'pum, meaning b'pum in his mouth, was this, that ak is klali. And then he says, v'chein matzasi, that Tzemach Tzedek writes, gam ken b'pirish l'talmid Rabbi Yisrael Sarug, talmid Arizal. Remember I spoke about Yisrael Sarug, was another student of the Arizal that was, so to speak, he revealed different aspects of Kisra Arizal that Rabbi Chaim Vital did not. But that's an expression. This is a type of precision. So you have the word klali, is something the Maggid would say often, and the Tzemach Tzedek heard it from the Alter Rebbe that way.
What would you think it was if you didn't? What's the chiddush there? Or what's that or following? Normally we would think that.
Remember, first of all, even if you knew it from the general picture, when you hear it straight from the Maggid saying it many times in the Alter Rebbe, that already gives you. Secondly, when you learn it in Eitz Chaim, it talks about ak. It can be explained many ways. It's very, very technical in Kabbalah. Kabbalah doesn't give examples. Like the example that I've been using is an example from the Alter Rebbe, envisioning building a house. I mean, I've been using art, but it's the same idea.
The Alter Rebbe actually used house?
Yeah, bias.
Not a piece,
bias. Yeah, art is used elsewhere. It's not like, I'm just saying, it's the idea that you envision, because a house is more fitting because you're talking about a structure of existence. It's more than just a painting. It's just painting, I think, is more contemporary and a little easier to relate to because it's more specific, whatever. And it's also the art of existence. It's the poetry of this world. But the point is that so that was not saying Eitz Chaim, that type of mashal. So that mashal, then you have to bring out. Okay, so what are you envisioning when you envision the house? You envision this klali. So, yeah, and then he makes in this mimer that someone said he explains klali in depth and detail what that means. But it's very relevant to our discussion here because yeah, because he keeps referring back to it. So bottom line is, it just helps tremendously when you see something like that you go back to Ayin Beis, because Ayin Beis, the Rebbe Rashab, of course, learned this. Not only did he learn it, he refers to it from time to time. So the whole idea of ak so we've talked about the influence of ak, the three impacts of ak, which, as I said, the first one is on all of existence. There's a fundamental unconscious bittul in existence. It's great to know this, that existence has in it the bittul of ak. However, it's completely concealed, which was why we have free will, and it doesn't affect us in any direct way. The only impact it was that we are a keli for something. The fact that we are a container for life means there's something. You cannot be a container if you don't have some bittul. So as much as the world, let's say, you could have an atheist or someone completely defies God, but you know something, he's alive. That means something inside of him is receiving divine energy, even while he's saying, I don't believe in God. It's almost like the American Declaration of Independence gives the right even to an atheist to say what he says, because everyone has freedom of speech. So it's like God is giving you life and saying, while I'm giving you life, I'm allowing you to say something which completely denies my existence. But the life that you're alive means that you're keli to something. Then in the last chapter, he added two things: the effect of ak on the Neshamas Yisrael. So you could say chapter 60 is the effect of ak on the entire world. You want to talk Mashiach dik, you can say the potential of the world to have bittul telekus is from ak. The kol kaima, like you said, the whole entire upright structure is bittul, but it's concealed. And in the last chapter, you could say what he says in the Rambam, that the whole world will be dedicated to learning that the entire world. And then it says, Shamas Jews will be chachamim g'delim, will be greater scholars, and so on. So you could say, I'm just using my own application. The last chapter was the effect of ak on the Shamas Yisrael specifically. That they have a particular amunah that is l'mayla matam v'das, super rational faith, which expresses itself in that ability to go on Kiddush Hashem without any, even someone who has no qualities, p'chusei erech. How do I translate p'chusei erech? Someone of the lowest, no, God forbid, subhuman? I never used such a word on a human being. It's called like beyond the below the stratosphere, Like anyway, p'chusei erech meaning someone without any the low stature, and even amaratzim. And the second thing was nasa v'nishma, the ability to proceed the complete bittul of the servant, completely just dedicated to what the Baal Haratzin, the one who owns, the master of the will, of all desires, wants. So now he's continuing in chapter 62. V'kol zeh b'makif da'ak, All this is the makif of Ak. Remember, we still have to talk about the makif before the tzimtzum, thiru ilaah. The makol mokim yesh le shayches al ha'ilmus. Because after all, or makol mokim, nevertheless, even if it's a makif, nevertheless, it has a relationship with the worlds. Hagam shehu b'bchinas makif harochik. Even though it's a distant, transcendent force. Because we said, it's a snapshot. It encompasses all time and space. So it's very distant in a way and very detached. The word distant here means detached from the day-to-day realities of our lives. So it encompasses it all, but we don't connect to it. Nevertheless, it has a relationship with us. And that's why from there is transmitted some reflection, some revelation in the souls. Now he's going to thiru ilaah, the higher purity or the higher shining. Let's just make sure that we're focused, we're grounded here. Thiru ilaah is just another name for Atzilus the Klolos, for the 10 hidden spheres, for Shir Atzmei B'Koyach, that God envisioning the image of existence. All that is this level of thiru ilaah. It becomes the Iggul HaGadol, it's the big circle that remains after the tzimtzum. All that's part of thiru ilaah.
What's an original existence that's envisioned in thiru ilaah and thiru tata?
One, there's no tzimtzum in thiru ilaah. Thiru ilaah is just within the divine.
Envisioning all of existence.
But one there's an existence. One is I already explained this 5 times.
Okay.
One is an actual piece of art. Ak is a world. That's not a world. There's no spheres there. There's nothing. It's pure God, godly energy.
You just said all of existence. That's what.
All of existence is envisioned there. God allocates himself. But remember, Esespheres Agnuzes, there's no spheres. It's just a word we use. It's complete. It's all part of the divine. It's like a divine mind that just envisions. Ak there was a tzimtzum. Ak is a world. It's called Elam Ak. It's called Elam the Bria. It's actually called Bria. So you're talking about, now the artist has put it into one snapshot. It's like a blueprint. A blueprint, a physical blueprint, is not the same as the envisioning in the mind of the artist. That's a simple explanation. There are many explanations. So, you have to understand, or let me ask you, what's the difference between before the tzimtzum and after the tzimtzum? Forget about all these levels. You know any idea? So tzimtzum means nothing to you? The tzimtzum, the big chiddush of the Arizal, that is a tzimtzum. Does it do anything in your mind?
I know it means contraction, diminishing.
No, but let's say there was no tzimtzum. Think of it. There's no tzimtzum. What would exist? What do you think?
That's all we would say.
Exactly. There would be no existence. So nothing could be fulfilled. The tzimtzum is the logical. Remember, God can do anything He wants. But whatever the tzimtzum does, that's what makes the impact and difference between before the tzimtzum and after the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum is such a critical component that Chassidus makes it a chiddush of the Arizal, even though the truth is it says it before, but it's hinted to. And without it, everything falls apart from a logical point of view. You can't reach the divine without the tzimtzum. Because then what happens is, the only way you can reach the divine is a diminished form of the divine. How could you read Atzmus? The tzimtzum actually creates the connection. Because it gives us the experience that there's a big jump going on, a quantum leap. Now the tzimtzum essentially leaves nothing. Even there's no kav. Nothing remains after the tzimtzum besides the reshimu. There's some residue, some impression. So whatever is envisioned in the divine essence cannot emerge in any possible way without the tzimtzum. So Ak is what emerges from the take thiru ilaah and put a tzimtzum and you have thiru tata.
Which is the or klali.
It's still the or klali, but now
it has all the properties.
Right. But now it's in a post tzimtzum state. So you can call it, there's independent consciousness. If you want to have let's talk expressions, before the tzimtzum you'd say there's no independent consciousness. The only consciousness is divine consciousness. But in divine consciousness, there's a consciousness of existence, there's a consciousness higher than existence, and all the levels we spoke about. But for the big sort of called independent consciousness of an entity, that is what happens right after the tzimtzum. And Ak is the first entity that emerges. The Kav creates Ak. So Ak would be Remember we spoke about that any creation, any production has, number one, a vision, then an outline, fleshing it out, and then you finish the product. Everyone, any business plan, starts with a concept. You get an outline, which is Bria. Yitzira is fleshing it out, and Asiya is the final product. Everything has to go through those stages. So Atzilus, the close, macrocosmic Atzilus is God's vision of existence. Ak is Bria, the close, is the first outline. Is the outline. Is the outline.
It includes Ak in the lower ones.
It includes everything in it.
Okay. Now I got it.
Yeah, and Ak is the first so-called manifestation of an outline based on the vision. But it's still an outline, it's still their clothing. So he's saying, and at the end of the question is a legitimate question, and the truth is we have to get away beyond the mathematics here. We really have to be able to relate to, that's why I'm using the simple examples that we're giving here. If you're able to dissect it inside of a person, think of the step. When you have an idea and you don't yet have an outline. What do you have? The idea is still amorphous. In many ways you maybe not even be able to make an outline yet because you don't have it defined yet. But that step, when you come from there to the outline is the excellent step. I know the relief. When you get it on outline, you know that at least I got it out of my system, so to speak. You got it on paper, someone else can see now at least the basic structure and the basic snapshot. It's the first thing. If you're running a company, you're running an organization, and you want to send a memo to someone, we want to initiate a whole new project. So the memo is a short memo. But you gotten out from your vision or from your concept, you got it on paper that someone who can look at it says, I get it. Now we got to flesh it out. Now we got to create. So Ak is that so-called God's memo from thiru ilaah, is the memo to existence. This is what I want. It's been put down. As a matter of fact, the mimer that chapter 6 to 59 is based on, if you remember I said, it's based on a mimer from the Alter Rebbe in Kisisa Tovkuf Samachei. That's the main thrust of the Maimon. Stakel baraisa or bara alma. What does it mean? God looks in the Torah and creates the world. The Torah is his memo that he wrote to himself. Now, why do you have to write it? Because obviously not for himself, it's for us. Because the next statement is that same thing is when we look in Torah, we kayim alma. We preserve the world. In other words, he put into Torah a picture of what he wants. Torah is God's so-called CAT scan of God's mind about existence, and also obviously it includes beyond existence. But it's then he says, Yehi Er. Yehi Er. He looks in the memo, it says Yehi Er and Ak. Yehi Er, Yehi Er, and then it comes into Yehi Er. So basically the artist has now put it down in some, it's committed. He committed to commit something. He committed it to some type of, can call it a document, you call it an entity, Ak, and Ak becomes the place where you keep going back to take everything in existence. The blueprint, absolutely. This is the essential thing that the Alter Rebbe said, Tovkuf Samachei, the Mittel Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek developed it, and Ayin Beis is taking it further. So really to appreciate these chapters, you have to really learn those Maimarim, because then you really see what the Alter Rebbe established, you see how it's developed. I'm sure you can do the whole Ayin Beis. You could do this, but this I see clearly. You could trace it. You literally see how it developed.
Which one is the first one? The Alter Rebbe's?
You wrote it down yesterday. Tav Kuf Samachei Pasha Kisisa. You look at all your notes that you write down, huh? You have them organized. Okay. So now he's going back to thiru ilaah. So he says at the end of the day, Ak. So now we got it. So Ak on one hand, if you ask us how close is it to existence, pretty far. Someone looks at a blueprint, it's a far cry from a building that you actually see. So on one hand, like he says, it's makif harochik, but it's shayches ala elmas. That's why from there you have some ha'ara, something emanates, because this is the key thing. When it comes to the blueprint, the example I was giving, the blueprint and the building, the only thing that it's important is to give you it guides you. But a blueprint it's not a divine entity. The example, human example. In our case, the divine blueprint actually emanates and transmits powers into existence. It's the same is true also when you're building. You go back to the blueprint, so it gives you the clarity. But here, it actually, Ak is also sending us the power of bittul. If you really think about it, if we were able to look at our existence, if you were able to see it, what do I look like in God's mind? If you thought that way, you'd have a lot more bittul, obviously. So in a way like Rosh Hashanah, when everything goes back to that skira achas, the God's envisioning it, you and I exist, we're a piece of the art. We're a part of the structure. So like he said, everything in time and space is in there. Even the turning of a leaf, the expression hayemim, is also machshava hagduma da'ak, in that original primordial thought of ak. So in general, that ak is impacting us. It's not just a detached blueprint. That's the key. The impact he spoke about, the impact of the bittul, the amun of faith, and the nasiv nishma, the bittul to the bal haratzon.
Do we say that you made a statement that when the Eibishter makes this blueprint, the ak, that it's for us, for the creation, for the creation, but it doesn't affect the Eibishter? Didn't you just say that a few minutes ago that the
I said that if you talk on his own, he doesn't need a blueprint. He doesn't need anything.
Don't we say that when somebody puts somebody write a memo or puts on a blueprint, the actual procedure of going through that, it actually that has an effect on our architect himself, is that he will adjust the
So
organizing your thoughts, it affects the architect himself. So do we say that there's an effect, so to speak, in that?
One level yes, one level not. That's the short answer. To explain it, a few chapters back, this is very important, and maybe that's what's when the Rebbe Rashab, before he got to this where we're talking now, Ak, it was, if you call the structure, when he moved over from immanent energy to transcendent energy, the example he was using is Ratzon and Keches, God's desire and faculties. And he explained maybe 10 differences between the two. The ones that are key are that Ratzon impacts but is not impacted. The faculties manifest and they're affected. For example, like you said, when you eat foods that are very gross or crass, coarse, they affect the brain from functioning in a refined way. Then he moved over and said the example on the deeper level, and Shefa. That Shefa impacts the teacher. The teacher has to apply himself. It's a whole chapter of how much a teacher has to apply himself, how he gets the Chayzer, how he gets wiser, how it sharpens his mind. Whereas an like sun, the sun gets nothing from shining. Nothing comes back to it. Same thing with the nefesh, the v'chayes hanefesh, the energy and life of the soul. And in the Nimshal, if you use that to explain that the same is with the divine, that the divine has two dimensions. Mamala, immanent energy, impacts and is impacted. So kavyachol, you could say the way God manifests in existence is an impact, because it's applying itself. As soon as you apply, there's a relationship. When makif is like so it impacts but is not impacted. So in truth is, and above you could say that God has all the qualities. He impacts in a very profound way, and it does not necessarily add to him in the deepest levels. Now, I have to qualify here. He doesn't say this, but I think in the second volume, then there's another thing. Atzmus wants to be impacted. That's a whole other story. See, a mashpia, when you teach someone, there's no choice. If you're going to teach in the right way, you're going to be impacted. God has a choice, but He chose to want to be involved. So that's where you have to qualify that anything above comes by will. That's why there was a chapter where he said, HaShemesh is not a good example for the divine because the Shemesh doesn't have a choice. It's compelled to shine. And above, and he says that's why he brought the example of the soul. The soul is not compelled to give life. He gave the different proofs because it can conceal itself, Gilgulim, reincarnation. So you have to remember that at the end of the day, Atzmus obviously has everything in it. He has the ability to not be impacted. That's natural. But he has also the ability to choose to be impacted. So when we say to be involved, one second. So when we,
fall in love.
Yes, he has the right.
So you feel right.
Exactly. So we say, let's just define these words. Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu. God desired He uses the word taiva. It's interesting. Now, obviously, when God desired, there were no taivas as we know taivas. So let's not apply to, and God forbid, to taivas. But he chose to use the word taiva, which means the first time taiva ever came into existence was a desire of God's. After many, many evolutions, with all the tzimtzumim, we can relate it when we just have this desire. Even a lust, that's even unhealthy, unholy. This type of super-rational or sub-rational for us desire. So God used the word. He didn't just use rotza. We have olah b'ritzene. You have the expression that it arose in his desire. Taiva is far deeper than desire, which means we may never understand why. Like it says in Chassidus, we don't know why he nesava, but we know that he did desire. That means in some way God, in his infinite or beyond infinite essence, for some chose to have a relationship with existence. So all these examples come to help us understand. There's all like Chassidus brings in Samach Vav, especially, and also here, all the mishalim of and all that. It's all coming to teach us sometimes why there's no shinui. See, Ani Hashem le'shanisi. There's no shinui, no change in God. But then you have all these mamorim and all the places that seemingly that there's no change. Does he care whether we do a mitzvah? Does he not care? Is he indifferent? So you have im tzedakta matiful ba. If you do just tzedakah, what effect does it have? All the expressions there. So later in Ayin Beis, and the Rabbi has a maimer laitiyah mishakela tofshin Beis. The idea, where the Mukabolim has the question, in Aveda Tzerach Gaveya, whether our Aveda is needed above. Is it fulfill a need? I remember I was at a conference in England myself, and they had all the superstars of Chabad. They had Emanuel Shachat, Manis Friedman, Lowenthal, a few others, in Cambridge. It was in England. That's when I delivered the wealth and spirituality thing, by the way.
What? Wealth and spirituality?
I wrote a paper then. Anyway, it was about affluence and religion, I think was the name of the so-called conference. Anyway, the last speaker was Manis Friedman. So each of us spoke, and then, in these type of things, you have professors and you have everybody rebutting you and this and this. Which, Professor Dr. Shachat, Emmanuel Shachat, he should be well, was a great rebutter, and he had something to say on everybody, including me. But I could stand my own, so we dealt with that. But then Manis Friedman spoke. It was like a closing comment, and then Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Sachs, came and he spoke. It was a very prestigious conference. It was very fascinating. Actually, it was great to be with them all.
How long?
Because they had good minds arguing. It was 3 days, 2 days, 3 days.
How many years ago?
Oh, 15 years ago, at least.
Is that on video?
It's not on video. I don't know. Maybe I have to ask Fivish Vogel organized it. But it was very interesting. A lot of things were interesting. That's when I heard the line from a professor who was there. One of when they have these conferences, they have actually professors sit in who give their comments.
He spoke in English?
Yeah, in English. It was England. It was in England. It was in London. It's Cambridge, actually, Cambridge University. That's where it was, on campus. So there was a professor from Israel who was like a sabbatical. He was in Cambridge for that year. So he told this interesting, I love the story. He said, Bialik, Chaim Nachman Bialik was one of the great poets and thinkers and enlightened, but he was a scholar. He happened to be a Torah scholar, came from yeshiva world. There's a famous book he gave out, which I have here, which is it's actually like an encyclopedia on, you see him sitting there with Sfarim without the head covering. So anyway, yeah. So listen to this. So he was once, Bialik was once, this guy tells the story. He says he was once going to Meir Sha'arim, he was looking for a shul to say Kaddish for his father. So he meets one of the little Yerushalmi boys. And the Yerushalmi boy, he says to the boy in Yiddish, Ingela, Vuida shul. Little boy, where's the shul? So the boy says, a shul is only for Eden, nicht for Goyim. Mind you, they're speaking Yiddish here. So he says, how do you know I'm not Jewish? He says, the geist on a couple. So Bialik, who is very well versed, he says, Kippa Shamayim. The whole heaven is my kippa. The heavenly, what is it called? Canopy. So the boy said, Zu greisa yamake for a kleine kop.
Whoa, such a huge animal.
For such a small head. That's what this professor said, because he was wearing this yarmulke. He says, I put on a yarmulke here for the honor of the rabbi. I said, isn't that a great answer? Huh? Beautiful answer. So, the truth is, the reason... the reason I'm saying is because, Manan Shriman spoke last. He didn't really deliver a paper. It was more inspirational. But his main point was that God needs us. He kept saying, God needs us. So, I saw, while Manas was speaking, Manan Shachman was writing these very quick notes, you could see very aggressive notes. And then he raised his hand, he pressed the button there, so he's going to rebut him. Which it wasn't like, it was like out of place. He's speaking inspirational few words. It wasn't like delivering a paper with sources, right? And, you have to know Emmanuel to know this is his style. He rebuts anything. He'll, if you say something from the heart, he'll say, And he went into this whole Maimonidean and Aristotelian discussion, how God needs nothing. That this is this new mumbo-jumbo of psychobabble of our times. And then God needs nothing, and it's, just to make people feel good that as if God needs us, God is complete, we need Him. That's it. Anyway, I get a note, literally, Freiburg Vogel was the moderator of that session, so he writes to me a note, you're going to have to rebut Manuel Shachat, because this can't stand.
Can't leave it.
Right. So I write back to him, I said to him, why are you giving me this chus? Why did you rebut him? He said, I'm a moderator, I can't do that. Anyway, he's calling on me. Right afterwards, pop, my light shines, I got to speak. So I said, I brought from Ayin Beis, I said, I'm by no means a professor nor a doctor, like Dr. Shachat. Definitely not an expert on philosophy. But my little knowledge of Kabbalah and Chassidus says that there's actually an argument between Kabbalists about this matter. Does God need us? And the words are, Aveda Tzerech Gaveya, which means, does Gaveya, that which is above, need us, need our Aveda? That's what it means. The Tzerech. Is Aveda Tzerech Gaveya? Is there a need in Gaveya for our Aveda? And there's two opinions. And Chassidus reconciles between the two. That in one place it says that God seems indifferent, like I said, Im Tzedakta and so on. But on the other hand, it says that Atzmus, in the place where he's indifferent, that's where he desired that it should make a difference. That's what it says. Chelik Zayin in Vayikra, there's a sikh about this also similar. It's like where tshuva reaches. That the same God that created the structure said, I'm giving opportunity for it to change if you do the right tshuva and stuff like that. It's a similar concept. Not exactly, but the idea is that the same place where God is beyond everything, He chose to want.
Yes,
and once He wants, the Rebbe actually has a chiddush that once a place that is so different wants, that desire is far deeper commitment than someone that has no choice. Because if we have to eat, you don't have a choice. It's not like up to you. But imagine you had a choice and then you chose that I want to be there. Your wanting to be there then is even more than someone who's compelled to be there. The Rebbe brings that. Because it comes with that whole intensity of the same indifference is now being channeled into that it should make a difference. And that's what I said. So I'm surprised that, Rabbi Friedman said what he said about need. You want to say you have another opinion? Fine. But to just dismiss it, especially Chassidus reconciles. Anyway, that was it. He wanted to rebut what I would.
Who was the...
Avoid the Tzerech Gavay's expression.
There was an audience?
Yeah, a few hundred people. Students, people, it was open to the public. Yeah. Yeah, it was relevant, of course. No, he wasn't there, I think. Anyway, the point, one second. And so after that, he started raising his hand. And then, Freiburg Vogel said, listen, you had your chances, that's it. It ended with what I had to say. Then he comes over to me, he went crazy. He said to me, what are you saying? You're not talking the same thing? I said, what are you talking? What are you saying to me? And then he suddenly blurts out, he was wrong in this, let me tell you, because he's very good at the mathematical structure of Chassidus. This part, I guess, needs a little more imagination, so to speak. I'm not trying to. I think he's brilliant, and but he said something which I really said to me. This thing of Aveda Tzerech Gavei. You and the Rebbe also with this Aveda Tzerech Gavei. That's what he said. Now he didn't mean it in a disrespectful way. He meant it academically. So I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, 20 years ago, I wrote an article for the Yiddish Haim. The Rebbe would edit the English side of the Yiddish Haim. And I wrote an article exactly about this. Does God need us? And I wrote exactly what I said, that it's mumbo jumbo and all that stuff. and the Rebbe edited, and the Rebbe wrote a whole thing to me that I'm going into, I'm getting into, that I'm nichnasta ben harim gevayim, which means you're going into the big heiche fence, you're going into the big mountains, you're getting into an argument between the big mountains and very subtle matters, and better not to go there, so write a different article.
Really?
Yeah. So I said, you have what the Rebbe wrote to you? He said, I never saved it. So they gave it back. So I said, I feel very good. I'm on the Rebbe's side here. So, I said, what are you putting me in the Rebbe? Maybe the Rebbe had a point, and maybe I'm just repeating the Rebbe's point.
Is that bittul thiru? The Rebbe said it.
No, he wrote a different article. He has a rational mind. And the Rambam Aristotelian mind, the idea of quantum doesn't exist. It's like Einstein saying that God doesn't play dice. Right, exactly. That really is what it comes down to. Does not relate to that idea. Huh?
God doesn't play dice? Not literally.
Einstein said when he heard the quantum mechanics that there's improbability, that God doesn't play dice. There's a defined way. Azay. Now, 1 second. If you go up Pitera, there is a defined way. There's halacha. A shir is like this. A Pesach is exactly this precise time. You can't do it a second later. You can't say Kol Yochel and God is everywhere all the time, so you can do Yom Kippur in the middle of Tisha B'Av. It doesn't work that way. But if you go to the source, there is an element that's completely not defined, and that itself God wants to bring into the picture.
And that's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I wanted to see what the Rebbe, but he said the Rebbe wrote these words, and exactly the same words. So I felt very, actually, by me it's a simple thing. I didn't really need, but I'm saying, but the Rebbe wrote it. So clearly, so I said, so what did you do? He said, I didn't write the article.
Where's that phrase?
No, he had Kabbalah said, the Rebbe told him not to write, he's not going to write an article. He's not going to fight with the Rebbe. But he didn't get it.
Was es dein Einfluss? Es obeyed das auch.
It's nicht mein Einfluss, steht der Chassidus. Exactly. Yes. Now what that means needs to require. Obviously, it doesn't mean impact like us. We impact each other. But the fact of the matter is, even here, he says, remember he said before, that from the perspective of tzimtzum, the transcendent energy, it sees even mamala imminent as not shefa. He said that clearly.
Yeah.
But there must be a perspective where there is seen a shefa, and even das tachten sees. In other words, when you say God, Shechina imam, Golu, we went in Golus and the Shechina is with us. We say when Kalani Meresh, when a person is hurting, it says it hurts God. You say Mateshes Keiches Shel Maila, Va'ata Yigdal Na Koyach Adnai. And now you'll make stronger the Koyach of Adnai. All these are seemingly references where there's impact. Or even the end of Parsha Bereshis, where it says, the God says, now I regret what I created. I changed my mind.
Yesterday, Schiftas and Chumash.
No, but this is a philosophical question. What does it mean? So usually, on a childish level, you just say, listen, Dibra Torah b'losh b'nei Adam, the Torah speaks in the language of man, all this is not anthropomorphism, it's just an example. But what is it? But bottom line is there impact or no impact? Obviously, it's not like an impact like us, where we get diminished or something. But there is an element where you say Shechinta Beglusa, that God in Golus, the revelation of the divine will to be with us is not there. It's hidden. So is that hidden only on a superficial level for us? Is there anything impact? In other words, Mashiach comes, is there any change in the etzem? It's not. I don't say I can explain this in 2 minutes, but you learn enough, you start being able to envision that it's possible. It's somewhat paradoxical, that's what it comes down to, but it's not. But when I say paradoxical, it doesn't mean it's crazy. It just means you have to relate to a certain paradox element. I'll say one thing, which I also want to say yesterday, in concern with what we discussed. I know it's not directly related to this, but since we're on the topic already, why not? One of the chidushim of the Rebbe, which, in my opinion, is a chidush that really helped, what we call tie a knot of a key issue with what you brought up yesterday. And this is, I'll just put it in context of like a contemporary question. You find in general, anyone that is any free spirit, any bohemian style person is going to always ask the question, does God really care if you put on a switch on Shabbos, or these details, and this shear, that shear, to the point of such precision? God, it's a spirit thing. Spirituality is beyond details. As long as you're connected to the light, that's the bottom line. Okay, so we have the answer. Today we know that the same type of spirit that's beyond everything Take for example a computer program, or God forbid, in a human body, 75 trillion cells, one mutant cell, one dot missing in a computer program, the whole thing doesn't work. In other words, the same divine spirit that's beyond everything, yes, made precision, and precision detail is not just a detail. A detail is part of the whole picture, and everything matters. I mean, that's one of the basic answers. Fine, but it goes deeper than that. So when the Baal Shem Tov came around, so we're told that there was, the Jewish people were like in a state of hisalfus, like a faint. Obviously, if you really think about it, compared to now, that was pretty good. This is the faintest today, with the indifference and the ignorance and the assimilation, etc. But you could say Chassidus came for today. Today may be even more important than that. But he was beginning to sense it. The years of Golus had taken their toll. Jews have become splitting between, as you call the Talmidei Chachamim. There's hierarchy. All the different things we hear about. The lack of appreciation of what a neshama is. The Avos Yisrael. The point is, however it was to turn it, no one really fully, I wasn't there, what was going on in the shtetls in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. I would say he probably didn't see apparent everything that we know today in retrospect, but it was the seeds were being planted. And above all, the way I always understood it was the beginning of the modern era. It was exactly when Mendelssohn and when reform was born, when assimilation was beginning to. It's when the emancipation of the Jews started. Basically, Baal Shem Tov came exactly with emancipation, with the new freedoms, and the old life that we know as the old shtetl, which obviously in the 20th century became full-blown, that was beginning to change. So the Baal Shem Tov is like the Magdim Refuah L'Maka that Hashem sent to precede the illness with a cure, giving us Chassidus. What was Chassidus? Chassidus was not a new revelation, as in, like the Friedrich Rebbe once said to a group of German rabbis. He said it's like flowers that are engraved in a beam, in a pillar. When you stayed from a distance, you can't see the flowers. When you get close, you see them. Chassidus shows you the flowers of Yiddishkeit. It's an example the Friedrich Rebbe once gave. It's a beautiful example. Which means he reintroduced, or not new, but emphasized the things like the power of a neshama, Avos Yisrael, simplicity, simcha, all the different things we know about. Amunah, Hashgacha Pratis. Everything is a lesson from God. Everything is a lesson in Avodas Hashem, etc. So, if it was the Baal Shem Tov alone, you could say the Baal Shem Tov revealed, as Chassidus says, the etzem. That's why he's called Yisrael, because when someone's in a faint, you call him by name, you awaken him. So you could say the Baal Shem Tov came to awaken the consciousness of Jews that was beginning to go into a slumber. And remember that most Jews were still from then, and was scholars, and you had Yiddishkeit thriving communities. But physically and spiritually, Jews were very broken in many, many ways, and it was starting to affect them deeply. So he revived. So you could say, the Baal Shem Tov came to revive the etzem, as some so-called not Chassidim would say. Okay, that was great. When someone's fainted, you need a Baal Shem Tov. But the rest of us were healthy Jews. We don't need the Baal Shem Tov. You can make that argument. You can go even further. The Baal Shem Tov didn't focus, as you put it, on years of study and avodah. He focused on revealing the etzem in every Jew. Now, had there been no Magid and no Alter Rebbe, you could say, okay, that's what the Baal Shem Tov came to do, and that was it. The Baal Shem Tov himself was a great scholar and all that. But his focus was to awaken the etzem. The Giluim were there, they had Torah and they had Ava and Yira on the outer level, but the etzem was missing. That's how we usually understand it. But then, and this is critical, because we come after it all, the Magid, and the Alter Rebbe, of course, the main, when you say, he's Miyasid Chassidus HaKlos, then the Alter Rebbe is Miyasid Chassidus Chabad. What exactly is the relationship between Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus Klos? What is it exactly? So the Rebbe has all the sichos, Chayel, they're both the birthday of both of them. The Rebbe always brings from the Hagdom in Tanya, the Haskama, from one of the Haskamas, it says, he Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. It says that, Yisrael, he brings there the word Yisrael, he's been Chay Yisrael. Because the Batanya is the Teres HaBaal Shem Tov. And there was a disagreement between the Alter Rebbe and some of the other students of the Magid about what was the real essence of the Baal Shem Tov's teaching. Some said the Alter Rebbe was taking it, turning it rational, turning it and it's taking away the spark of the simcha, of the simplicity, of just dancing, etc. Even the tzaddik b'manasa yichya. Do you rely on the tzaddik? Do you not rely? And some said the Baal Shem Tov's approach was, yes, you rely on the tzaddik. He's your channel. The Alter Rebbe's focus, Aveda, your own Aveda. And the Alter Rebbe was also in the Baal Shem Tov. The Alter Rebbe wasn't saying a different shit. This, he said, is the Baal Shem Tov. So the way we understand it is that the Baal Shem Tov reawakened the spark, the etzem. But the etzem is not enough in Yiddishkeit. You have to bring the etzem into Giluyim. To say that it's enough just to go with your spark and not learn every day and not daven. Obviously, a person's not there yet. You still love him, and you look for every mile and you try to find ways to awaken his spark. But you have to now take the spark and channel it into a life, a Yiddishkeit life, Torah, mitzvahs, aveda, and that the Alter Rebbe was taking the etzem of the Baal Shem Tov and bring mamshech in a chachma bin das and in all the keichus hanefesh. So if you want to say, you could say that the Baal Shem Tov is keser. Here's the connection: keser. The Alter Rebbe is chachma.
What's the makif?
The makif is atik anarich. Okay, but it's like the mamutza, right? So you could say the Baal Shem Tov reawakened the rotzen kloli, the what he said here, the ak. I'm going somewhere with this. And the Alter Rebbe, the Mittel Rebbe developed Bina further with the Alter Rebbe. The Tzemach Tzedek is Das, and then come the other Rabbeim. The Marash is Netzach, the Rebbe Rashab is Hoid, Friedrich Rebbe is Yesod, the Rebbe is Malchus. That's how we. Chesed Gevurah Tiferes are not mentioned in this context. So Netzach Hoid Yesod is essentially Chesed Gevurah Tiferes on a more actualized level. That's how. The point being is that they took the Keser that the Baal Shem Tov reawakened and brought it now into the Giluyim. So just to use a classic example of this, the Baal Shem Tov example of Tefillah La'ani, Nafshi Kiyatif, L'fnei Hashem Yishbach Sichi, the famous example that two people were invited to see a king. One was a aristocrat, educated, literate person. Another person was a pauper, ignorant, illiterate, and so on. The first comes the aristocrat, the educated one. He goes into the palace. He sees the king's collections of literature and art and music. He's enamored. So he ends up stuck watching it all, and he misses his appointment. No, God forbid. No. All of us have that dimension. You get enamored by the majesty. The second one, the pauper comes in, and he doesn't appreciate any of this. He walks right through all those chambers. He's completely oblivious. He goes right into the king, spends his time, he pours out his soul to God. And so Baal Shem Tov says, Tefillah La'ani, when you stand before God, suspend all your sophistication and just stand naked in front of God. And then ask for everything, and then God will bless you with the wisdom and appreciation of all His... It's like why we don't focus, even though in Zehar you have talk about the stars, and you have even talk about reading a palm or a face. We don't focus because these are stations. You don't get caught up in God's what's called paintings. You want God Himself, like the Alter Rebbe said. Im chalei chafatzti. I don't want Gan Eden, but straight to the source. So you can take from this the pshat. Okay, so the Baal Shem Tov is focusing on the etzem, and the Alter Rebbe is saying, okay, now bring that back out into the art, into the literature and the music, in other words, appreciation. There comes the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was machadish something. I can tell you exactly what it is. Vayigash chelik hei kutesichas. It's one of the biggest chedushim of the Rebbe in Chassidus. About this, exactly this. The Rebbe doesn't speak about Baal Shem Tov Alter Rebbe. That's my connection. But you'll see how powerful what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe asked a question. It's negate to everything we're discussing here. The question is, it says in the Mishnah, this is actually a question from the Rebbe V'Kocha, but the Rebbe takes it even further. Before the Rebbe's question is like this, before the V'Kocha, the Rebbe asks, Mashiach comes, is this only for us or also for God? You could say, from God's perspective, Golus is preferable, because He has Mesiras Nefesh. We have all the challenges, the darkness. The deepest light is in darkness. Mashiach is because, hey, you did the work, you need a reward. People don't understand. We don't relate to darkness. When God has nachas from our Mesiras Nefesh, it's not exactly meaning we're getting pleasure. It means He has pleasure from our lack of pleasure. So is Mashiach just a candy being thrown to a child, but God doesn't need it, which would be very weird. That the whole Geula is just for us and not for, So the Rebbe answers like this. It says in the Mishnah, Yafasha achas This is L'kutei Sichos Chelik Hey Vayigash, the second Sicha Vayigash. One of the first Sichos we all learned, one of the fundamentals. He says, so we know the Mishnah, right? 1 hour of tshuva ma'asim tovim in this world is yafa, is more pleasant or more beautiful, not more pleasant, more beautiful, more powerful than all kol chai elam haba, from all the life in the world to come. Think of that statement. 1 hour of work in this world is more than all that. But then the Mishnah continues. It says, yafa sha'achas shel keiras ruach. 1 hour of pleasure, satisfaction in the world to come is worth more than all the pleasures of this world. So seemingly there's a contradiction here. Seemingly. So the Rebbe Marash answers, the difference is, which nachas ruach? If you talk about nachas ruach, nivra, our pleasure, this world is nothing compared to the pleasure in Olam Haba. You talk about God's nachas ruach, so 1 hour of our work here is worth more than all the pleasures of Olam Haba. That's the answer. So the Rebbe says, so what second? So it's two different worlds. What God gets most pleasure, we don't. What we get most pleasure, He doesn't. Or it's overshadowed. So what's with Mashiach? And the Rebbe's answer is unbelievable. Simple but extremely profound. He says it's all based on, why does God get more pleasure in Golus, so to speak? Is because the etzem is revealed when the Giluyim are concealed. When there's a lot of Giluyim, when there's a lot of, like the story of the Mashal with the Baal Shem Tov. When the guy is the wise guy, he gets stuck with all the revelations and he misses the appointment. So the Rebbe asks, does that mean is God bound only to be concealed? In other words, the etzem can only be revealed when the rest is concealed. In other words, when you have a lot of Giluyim, is the etzem impossible for it to be revealed? And the Rebbe says, God forbid. If you say that the etzem can only be revealed when everything else is concealed, that itself is limiting the etzem. And it's negay in the etzem that the etzem also should be revealed. So Mashiach is not just for us. As long as God remains concealed, as much as pleasure as He has in it, there's something lacking, that His revelation is also important in the etzem. The etzem must express itself. That's the Rebbe's chiddush. So what's the Rebbe really doing? He's saying that the Alter Rebbe's chassidus didn't come and take the etzem of the Baal Shem Tov and said, let's spread it out. It's negay in the etzem. If the essence of the Baal Shem Tov does not come into Torah and Aveda, and in our Chabad and Chagas and our things, even the etzem the Baal Shem Tov is awakening is lacking. That's the bottom line. Now that doesn't mean that there is no etzem in everything. The point is, in other words, it's not sufficient to just say that let's touch the essence of everything. When Mashiach comes, there's a pasuk that says the following: Lo yilam du eid ishas re'eyu. A person will not. No one will teach each other. Ki kulam yedu esi. Everyone will know me, my essence. Miktanam v'agdelam. The miktanam, from small to great. To the Rebbe's father, and the Rebbe brings this as the question: what's going on here? One won't teach the other. Everyone will know me, and then you add from small to big. But then there's no small and no big. And the Rebbe's answer is the Rebbe's father's answer, and the Rebbe's answer is very simple. He says, diversity is not going to change when Mashiach comes. There's still going to be. But everyone's going to be able to see in their containers the essence. But you need to have that the essence is expressed. In other words, Torah and mitzvahs is not just an incidental thing, because when you have the etzem, what else do you need? It is negaya in the essence. I'm saying it all back to with the thing with God needing us. That God desired, that in other words, when we are lacking something, if a Jew does not have parnasa and is suffering, yes, you could say there's an etzem there and you're being tested and there's the deepest revelations. But there's something that God is lacking as well. And a Jew's, the parnasa and health and gili that we have is negay also in the etzem, not just as a favor for us to serve Hashem. Well, you need to be healthy. No, our health is negay in God's health, so to speak. Just wanted to throw that out. I know it's not so relevant directly here, but okay. So let's continue.
This pasuk of Avodah is from where? Where's the?
Avodah HaKodesh. It's not a pasuk. It's Avodah HaKodesh. In volume 2 of Ayin Beis, in the middle of the volume, I don't remember the page. Huh? Avodah HaKodesh from Ibn Gabbai. He's the same Kabbalist that says that if you see, God has to have the power of finite as He has the power of infinite. If not, He's missing, He's lacking. Right. It's the same. And let's go here. The point is, what maybe it's connected to here is Kesser is Baal Shem Tov. but Kesser has to come into Chabad. The beauty of this is that everything needs everything. It doesn't come. The etzem needs to be expressed. Obviously, Giluyim alone, without the etzem, you're missing the foundation. The Rebbe once brought a gate to Chaim Mushka, the Sicha of B'choy Yifar the Chav Beis Shvat. The Rebbe spoke his beautiful thought there. He brought Chaim Mushka. Chaim means life. Mushka means a scent, right? A fragrance. So he says, when you make a dira b'tachtenim, you need two things. You need to have the structure. He says, that a man can do well, but you need to have the warmth. You come into a house. It's not just a house. Is not just a home. A home is not just a house. A home has an ambiance. And the Rebbe says, then the ambiance is not just an external thing. He brings this. He says the ambiance is nigei in the etzem, because God wants a dira b'tachtenim, not just a house. Doesn't want just shelter.
A dir na'ah.
Right, a dir na'ah, exactly. So the na'ah, when it says dir na'ah, marchiva daita shel adam, so also adam elyon. A beautiful home, it says, expands the mind's mind, also the adam elyon. So even God. Yeah. So look at that sikha. It's a beautiful Chav Beis Shvat sikha. It was, what year was it? Nun Beit.
Memches, wasn't it?
Memches was the yard site. No, it was not Memches. No, it was not Memches. Was it Memtes? No, it was Nun Beis. Nun Beis. The last Chav Beis Shvat. Or maybe Nun Aleph? Nun Beis. Yeah. I wrote that sikha. Beautiful sikha. It says a Chaim Mushka. Like the Gemara says, that a man goes out and threshes and brings the grain, and the woman makes the challah. So it's not that she's doing some technicality. That's the purpose. That brings it out. Anyway. So Kesser and the premium. So now let's go back to yeah. So Ak is the Ratzon Kloli, as we said, is the blueprint. But the higher shining or the higher purity, and that's the Iggul HaGadol Shlifnei Akav. Remember, the Iggul HaGadol is what remains after the tzimtzum is the big sphere. You can call it the big bagel. The big bagel. That work? Can you define gvul? What is gvul? Everything is relative. Ak has an element of gvul and has an element of ein sof. What about Atzilus? Is gvul? Remember in how many chapters we learned the question whether air has gvul or not gvul?
So what's it with ilaah? Before
okay.
we were stating that we're talking about before the tzimtzum.
After. Now we're going before the tzimtzum.
So how is ilaah after the tzimtzum?
No, ilaah is before the tzimtzum.
No, שזהו בחינת האיגול הגדול שלפני הקו, וגם שזהו גם כבחינת makif ואילומוס אחר הtzimtzum.
You remember? I didn't read that line yet. I'll explain. But let's start there. Even though the Iggul HaGadol, which is Lifnei HaTzimtzum, is a makif to the worlds that are after the Tzimtzum, that's Pshat. So it goes like this. Remember, Eitz Chaim's language. Ein Sof Mamala Kol HaMetzias. You have some conscious divine presence that fills everything. Meaning whatever will arise. This is not Atzmus. We're talking Ein Sof now. So it's Metzias Nimtza. It's a presence that we can say is present. This consciousness fills everything. Then Olah B'Ritzeinei, within this infinite possibilities that the artist arose in his will, is the level of the Esespheres Hagruzis, Shir Atzmei. He envisioned. It's still all Ein Sof Lifnei Tzimtzum. Okay. Then comes the tzimtzum. There's a power that conceals. So it conceals it all, and all kinds of things happen in that concealing. He spoke earlier what happens to the Er HaBlikvul, what happens to the Er HaGvul. A Rishima remains. Okay, now, what do you have? You have a black hole. I mean, it's not physical, but conceptually you have a space, which will become the Mokim Chol, Mokim Panei. Chol Mokim Panei is the language. A hole, an empty space. But you have light all around it. That's now called Iggul HaGadol. So the Iggul HaGadol is essentially what remained from the Ein Sof Lifnei HaTzimtzum, the lowest levels of it. So Iggul HaGadol is really the sheer atzmei, God's envisioning. The Iggul HaGadol remains hovering and retains that envision. The sheer atzmei b'koyach is the Iggul HaGadol. That's the point. And it now surrounds everything that comes within. The Iggul of Ak is the first Iggul that the Kav creates within. So if you really think of it, there's like a circle around the rim of the Cholol, and there's a circle on the inner side of the Cholol, with a little space. That is the difference between thiru ilaah and thiru tatah. So what he's saying is like this: makif of ak, which we discussed, has a relationship with the world, even though it's makif harochik. And that's why some reflection and revelation comes into the souls. Thiru ilaah, which is the Iggul HaGadol shlifnei hakav, meaning the Iggul HaGadol means the big circle that remained at the end after the tzimtzum, before the kav transmits and creates the first thiru tatah. Hagam shezagam b'chinas makif leil misachar tzimtzum. Because remember, there's no Iggul HaGadol before the tzimtzum. You can't call it Iggul HaGadol.
Thiru ilaah has to do with the tzimtzum.
It emerges afterwards. I just said to you, the Iggul HaGadol before the tzimtzum, you can't call it Iggul HaGadol, because what is it surrounding? Remember he said before, you can't call it Seviv. All you can say, it encompasses everything. You can say, in this area and Sof, there's a level that encompasses everything that's going to come later. Okay? But you can't call it an Iggul HaGadol. But the Iggul HaGadol is that level. After the tzimtzum, you could call it an Iggul HaGadol. That's all. Right. Exactly. Now it has the surrounding, and it's surrounding everything. He's just saying that it also has a connection. But he's now going to explain that it's not the same thing like the connection of ak. Ein lezeh shaychus al elmis. So hagam shezeh gamkin, even though it's also makif to the elmis, it has no relationship with the world. Ve'ein nimshach mezeh ha'ara begili. And nothing is transmitted, and from there is not transmitted any reflection, an illumination. Before we said ak at least sends something into this world. The different things he spoke about, the Kabbalah soil, the Amunah, the bittul, etc. But we still have to say it has to have impact. That's the problem now. So he's going to go and discuss what is the impact of this Iggul HaGadol. Because it is there. And his answer is going to be like this. Omnam Yedua, however it's known, the Sheirish HaKelim Ubchinas Ha'er Makiv Dafka. It's known that the root of the containers, what time do we have, do you know? We know that the root of the containers is specifically from the makif, from the transcendent energy. Okay. Like it says in Eitz Chaim that the creation, the formation of the containers comes through the striking of the makif and the pnimi. The tension that's between the two. That's what it says there. We learned this earlier too. But their primary root is from the makif. In other words, even though it says in Eitz Chaim it's from the interaction between makif and primi, but its primary root is in the transcendent energy, like it says in Tere'er, in the second beer of Yavil Levush Malchus. That's Megillah Esther. And that's why a container is round. The shashahu ma'er makif, because it's rooted in the makif, the Iggul, which is round. Like it says elsewhere. Well, and according to this, we can say the bittul shalakeli hu ma'er makif mebchinas Iggul HaGadol. That the power of bittul, of the container, that comes from the transcendent energy of the thiru ilaah, of the big circle, the great sphere of Iggul HaGadol. So he's introducing now a new impact. The interesting thing is that a container has no revelation, but it's a container. What makes it able to contain energy? He's saying that's the impact of the Iggul HaGadol.
I have a good mushroom for that. When you know that with children you blow into a bubble thing, so the or panimi is you're blowing into it and it's making little round things. It's shaping little containers. You can blow through.
But this is makiv, not panimi.
No, it's or makif. With the or panimi is your breath.
Oh, you mean the hakah? Yeah. You're talking about the striking. I understand. So, bottom line is, look. Let me just, before we continue, because this can be a little. I don't want this to be esoteric. This is quite practical if you think about it. Every part of existence, that we know, as we know right here sitting in this room, this table, was created by that source, by God. We all know that dir v'tachtenim means that every aspect of existence must be returned to its source, or mean realigned with its source. Nothing can remain outside. Nothing. And that's our avodah. So in simple language, like he says in this week's parsha, Lo yalechem levadi yichya adam, not on bread alone does man live, ki im hametzi pi Hashem yichya adam. But in the spark of the divine, or moitzi pi Hashem, the expression of God's words, so we say, so when you take a piece of bread, and you say, hamoitzi baruch atah Hashem hamoitzi lechem min haaretz, blessed are you God, the Melech created the world, the King of the universe, that you the one that moitzi lechem min haaretz, you draw out lechem, you're revealing the spark of the lechem, and saying this is divine. You eat it with the right kavanah, you use the strength to a mitzvah to help somebody, you've taken matter and turned it into energy. Now the energy, everyone turns it into energy. You turn it into holy energy, not just energy. Okay, great. So when we talk about transcendence, meaning to bring into a world a higher presence, so there's really two aspects going on here. There's the containers of the world, which is the actual objects and actual physical matter. And then there's the energy within it all. So we talk about the creation of the world. We spoke earlier, the way God creates the world is He takes energy and puts it in containers, chesed, gvura, chochma, bina, etc. But what about the reverse process? How does our avodah work? So our avodah is to take our hand, which is a keli, align it with chesed of your neshama, and give somebody tzedakah. What you're doing is taking the er ha-chesed through the keli of the klei ha-chesed, through the klei of your hand, and it's all being aligned to chesed of Atzilus, the chesed of the Eibishter. You're doing chesed. That's clear? But if you now dissect it and break it down, so there's a few elements here. You have the transcendence that's the introduces. Well, I should stop. Before the transcendence, let's talk about the immanence. Just the awareness that I said, Mamalakalam, that God put this world into place. That God in the morning, that God gives us life, that God gives us parnasa. Recognizing God's presence, what's in it for me. Let's talk like that. What's in it for you? Like you said before, there's naveda, kabbalah seil mitzvahs, not kabbalah seil machal shamayim, where you see the benefit that you have from it. You see what you're being mamshich into the world, into yourself. It's good for you. That is er pnimi. That's also a level, because you are connecting to a source. You're not just selfish, but it's alakus on your terms. Then comes transcendence. You're aware there's something beyond you, and therefore you dedicate yourself not because I get something from it, but because I recognize the truth of that, and I put everything aside, or I recognize that I should put everything of myself and dedicate myself to this kabbalah sel malchus shamayim. That's what he said before from Ak. That gives us the bittul of recognizing the Baal Haratzon. And I lay myself on the ground, prostrate myself completely before you, whatever you want. That's transcendent already, energy. But now comes the keli. What about the container itself? The physical world was created through concealment. Whether it's pnimi or makif, both are revelations. One is a revelation on the terms of the structure, like a mashpia and a makabel. The teacher has given something to the makabel. Okay, fine, that's on my level. And then there's a sense of awe of the divine, the transcendent. Both are revelation. What about the kelim themselves? Maybe the keli at the end of the day can't be elevated. All you can do is not be distracted by it. Let's use like the Rambam, the machlekes of the Rambam and the Ramban. The Osad Love, they argue, the Rambam says the ultimate reward is the shamas without gufim. Yes, will be a stage that the guf will get reward, but then everything will revert back, it will be only souls. Why? Because from the Rambam's perspective, a body is inferior to a soul. How could a limited, mortal, physical body be a container for the real highest levels of elikus? It can get something, but it can't get the highest. The Ramban says, Nachmanides, and Chassidus paskins like this, the Alter Rebbe paskins, and Chassidus, that the ultimate reward is souls and bodies. Why? Because God is not defined by spirit. Since when is God limited only in the spiritual worlds? There's also godliness. But the question is how? The container, by definition, the Rambam's argument is a strong argument. A container is only a container. It's a concealed entity. It was created through tzimtzum. Air, whether it's air pnimi or air makif, immanent or transcendent energy, are both coming from the kav. They're both revelation. One is a limited revelation. One is an undefined revelation. One is revelation tailored to the containers. One is revelation that is beyond the containers. But they're both revelation. But a keli, how could you elevate a keli? So what he's being mechadash here now is saying that's the effect of thiru ilaah, the Iggul HaGadol. It embedded in the container, as concealed as it is, in its unconscious state, there's a fundamental receptivity, and therefore it can be elevated as well. So there's a transcendence in the container, but obviously it's completely concealed. Whereas, in other words, the container is just a corpse. It's just an inanimate entity. That's what he's adding here. So you have transcendence impacting existence, but in a completely different way. It's the mere fact, for example, that your body is receptive to the soul. Why is your body accepting your soul's energy, for example? Why doesn't it reject it? Say the body will say, I don't want your energy, I have my own life to live. Just the mere fact that why do we, for example, control a piece of food? Why doesn't it control us? I mean, I'm just giving examples. I don't know if these are really appropriate examples. The point is, the keli has an element of this type of transcendence. So let's continue. Let's say, the bittul shel keli hu ma'er makif mebchinas Iggul HaGadol. The ne'er pnimi hu bchinas islapshus begili ba'keli. Because the immanent energy is manifest and enclosed in a revealed way in the containers. Upoil bittul ba'kelim. And it impacts bittul in the containers. The kelim are fundamentally mitzias, they have identity and substance, and the energy, the light, is substanceless. The only difference is there's different levels of ayin. There's different levels, but air makif, air pnimi. Because he said earlier that air makif is ayin and air pnimi is yesh. But bottom line, they're both still ayin. Relatively speaking to the container, all light and energy is a form of substanceless. But in general, air generally is ayin, is ethereal. And that's why the energy, the light, affects bittul in the containers, sublimates them. That they should also be in a state of ayin. And let's look later what it says, chapter 2, 94. Okay, so we know, fine. We know that a container is a container for air pnimi. Take the faculties. The arms, the legs, your eye, your ears. They're not just there. A stone is not a keli for the er hariyah, the power of vision. It needs to be an eye. It's a particular type of container. So we know it has bittul. The question is, where does the bittul come from? That's what he's asking here. Or not asking, explaining. The power that the container should have within them, this type of submission, surrendering to the energy, and even more, and moreover, that this bittul should be in such a way that they should become fundamentally subjugated. That they should be united with the divine infinite light. That comes from the makif of the higher shining, which is the root and source of the containers. Now, trust me, I have some questions here. I just want to bring them to the table yet. My first question is Iggul HaGadol is the level of Shir Atzmi B'Kayach. He said before, that's the 10 spheres in the air, not the Kalim. He's now saying that the root of the containers are also in this Iggul HaGadol. So you have to say that Kayach HaGvul, of also the containers, is rooted there. But just for the record, for pages and pages, he was discussing that level and the level of energy, not the level of containers. Now, it's not a contradiction. It just means in that energy, let's put it this way, in the artist envisioning, there's two parts. He's envisioning both the energy of existence and the containers of existence. In other words, the Kayach HaGvul of Atzmos also travels through the Eir HaGvul, basically. That's the point. He didn't say that yet, but I'm sure this is going to be qualified at some point. Because this was a big subject. Earlier on, this was a big issue. He kept saying the Eir HaGvul that we're talking about, the Gvul in the Eir is not the Keich HaGvul of the Rishimu of the Kelim. He said this very clear. And here he's bringing it back specifically for the containers. This is not about...
So the Oraso and the containers are both they're both in the 10 spheres. Yeah, absolutely.
Why 10 spheres? You're talking about Iggul HaGadol. Right?
No, he's talking about the hidden 10 spheres, which is the Iggul. Iggul HaGadol is the 10 hidden spheres.
Yeah, so
it's on that level. 10 hidden spheres.
Right. I thought we talked about the spheres. Spheres and the Nuzim is higher than Iggul HaGadol.
No, but the Iggul HaGadol, it's the level of the Iggul HaGadol. That's the level. I told you, that's where he envisioned, when God envisioned the structure, that's the 10 hidden spheres.
Before the Iggul HaGadol, no? Because the Iggul HaGadol has to have...
Yeah, but the Iggul HaGadol is that level, what remains after the tzimtzum.
Right, but the Aliyas Ratzon, and then you said the
in stages, Aliyas Ratzon happens, but the Iggul HaGadol is the same level of the Esses Spheres Hagnuzis that remains after the tzimtzum, surrounding all of existence. It's lower as in stages.
Yes.
Because the Iggul HaGadol is after tzimtzum effect.
Right.
Yeah, but what was the Iggul HaGadol? What does it consist of? It's the Esses Spheres Hagnuzis that were there before. That was
a more revealed form now, because it's now not just...
You can't even call it revealed. It's makif. It's makif, but it's you can't call it revealed yet. You could just call it surrounded.
This Iggul HaGadol emerges when you have the halal, it emerges. Otherwise, you can't refer to it as that.
I wouldn't call it emerging. I would call it what's left, because remember, it's an energy before the tzimtzum. Iggul HaGadol is before the. What is Iggul HaGadol? Where is this Iggul HaGadol?
It's right surrounding the halal.
But it's connected to Eir Ein Sof. Okay, it's not there's no detachment. It's not like the Kav. Right. Iggul HaGadol is what remains of the Eir Ein Sof that surrounds
surrounds the halal.
Right. So it's a hovering element that's remained. What does it retain? It's the level of the Esses Spheres Hagnuzis.
It's the last stop.
Correct.
So to speak, on or.
It's the last stop. It's Malchus of Ein Sof becomes the Iggul HaGadol, and from there will come the Kav. Okay, so this is the containers. And the bittul, the subjugation or sublimation of the container, reaches deeper than the bittul of the Eir. Why? By Inyan who, the Inyan, and this is Api Mashakasav Mokamacher, according to what it says elsewhere, Al Maimer Apirkad Rebbe Lezer, on the Maimer, on the expression in the Pirkad Rebbe Lezer is a medrash. Gaba Ayole Shel Yitzchak, regarding the isle, the ram of Isaac, as we know by the Akedah. Kid? Well, Akedah, by the Akedah, yeah. That after Hashem told Avram, do not bring him the Malach tells Avram, do not bring him as an offering, so they see the isle stuck with his branches in the tree, and that's what Avram offered, the isle, instead of Yitzchak. So what does it say in Pirkei? It says like this: Poshet ha'ayel es yodei. The isle, the ram, extended its arm, v'noge b'talisei shel Avram Avinu, and it touched the talus of Avram Avinu, alav hashalom. That's what the Medrash says. What does this mean? Muvur sham, in that place that we're citing, the Avram hu b'chinas gili hakav. Avram is the kav, the revelation of the ray and thread of light. Mi heir memizrach, like it says mi heir memizrach. So how do you translate the word heir? You could say mi heir, here's with an ayin, mi heir memizrach. So it says the al tikra heir el ha'ir. Don't read heir with an ayin, read it with an aleph. Who is shining? Who's illuminating from mizrach, from the east? V'ubchin is gili hakav. That's the revelation of the Kav, the Shoshim et Teferes Hanelam. It's rooted in the hidden Teferes, that means the Teferes of the 10 hidden spheres. So Avram Avinu is the level of the Kav that's rooted, where does it originate from? From the Teferes of the 10 hidden spheres in the Iggul HaGadol, essentially, before the tzimtzum. And what's the talus of Avram? The talis shel Avram and the talus of Avram. Hu b'chinas Iggul HaGadol shlifnei HaKav. That's the Iggul HaGadol. Vayedeha Akeda di Yitzchak. So Avram Avinu is the kav, rooted in the 10 spheres before in the Iggul HaGadol, and his talis, which surrounds Avram. What surrounds the kav? The Iggul HaGadol. So the aisle now touches that Iggul HaGadol. So he continues. Through the offering of Yitzchak, through the binding of Yitzchak, which is literally the giving of your body in actuality. That the body becomes a korban, an offering to God. Through that, the ram extended itself. It touched the talus of Avram. In other words, what does the aisle represent? Represents the offering, right? It was in place of Yitzchak. Because of Yitzchak's Mesiras Nefesh, and this, or the ability to give of that, the aisle touching means through that you touch the Iggul HaGadol. In other words, Mesiras Nefesh touches that source. The transcendent energy, the thiru ilaah. The hinu yadua, the Mesiras HaGuf Magil Amayel Yesum.
Represent again?
The Akeda, the Mesiras Nefesh. The offering. It's the offering.
I know, but it's the oral.
It's the Aveda. It's the Aveda of a human being ready to offer themselves.
Light goes up.
He's trying to show the Sheresh HaKelim is higher than Sheresh. The bittul of the Kelim is higher than the bittul. By giving your Kelim, by ready to give your body to God, you reach the makif HaGadol, the Iggul HaGadol. That's bottom line what he wants to say. The aisle is not a level. The aisle represents the Aveda, the korban. 1 second, let me continue, huh?
It has both ors and kelim there.
He's talking about...
He's willing to kill his not only his body, but his aura also.
No, that's not. No, but let's not talk about that right now. That's what he's saying here.
Okay.
This is the giving of this. Yeah, but the bittul doesn't reach that. The bittul only reaches, like he said earlier, it only reaches the ta'ak. Talking about the bittul of 1 second. Let's.
Mesiras Nefesh of his own kelim. He's saying. Okay, that's it.
The hinu yadua, the Mesiras HaGuf Magil Amayel Yesum Mesiras Nefesh. Giving of the body reaches deeper and higher than the giving of the soul. Like it says elsewhere in the inyan of Yisalach Chanech, in Bereshis, that Chanech went to God. Yisalach Chanech Esalakim, he walked with God. Ve'inenu, and then he ceased to be. What does it mean? It means Chanoich, through his avodah, with his bittul gufet, by sublimating his body specifically, he became encompassed in the ayin amiti, in the true ayin amiti of Atzmus Ein Sof. Right. If you recall, he said that's the level of oir, not shefa, ayin amiti. So you see from this again that giving of the body reaches that higher level. Yeah.
That's what it means. But he's
that even his body, he went up with his body, like Eliyahu. Yeah. And in general, the Mesiras Nefesh, someone who gives their life with their body, specifically reaches far greater and higher than Mesiras Nefesh, giving that's from the soul itself. And especially with such a sublimation that of the body in such a form that it completely gets united with godliness. Like by Chanech and Eliyahu, that their bodies became divine bodies, not just their souls. We could say this is also the virtue, the quality of offerings. When you bring an offering, you take the flesh, chelev. I said cholov. The flesh, v'chelev, and the fat, hagashmi, physical fat, nichlo be'esh shalamayla, is encompassed in the fire from above. Same thing as a fasting. When you fast, achelev v'dam, the fat and the blood, nichlo be'elakus. When you fast and don't eat, you're giving of your fat and of your blood. That usually is feeding and filling itself with food. That it should be encompassed in godliness. That's why a tainus is compared to like a korban, because you're actually busy giving of your physical. And that's the virtue of Yom Kippur, with the oppression, the affliction of the body. You fast the 5 inuyim, 5 different things that we so-called deprive our body of. Shemagia l'mayla mahatshuva. That reaches higher than tshuva, because you're giving not just tshuva is your psychological, spiritual return. Here you're actually taking your body and breaking it, and fasting and so on. That reaches higher than tshuva, like it says elsewhere. He's all the bittul of the kelim. Bittul hazeh.
Tshuva is or, and fasting is kelim.
Yeah. Bittul hazeh shaguf mesachet belakus. And this bittul of the body that's united with the divine, we can say this reaches the makif haklali, thiru ilaah. And this is the asid in the future. That will be the revelation of the makif haklali of the Iggul HaGadol. Like it's known in the thing, Yahalu Shmei b'machal, that you will praise his name in a machal, in a dance, in a circle. The Shmei b'chinas hakav. Shmoi, the name is the kav, like Avram. Machal, the circle b'chinas Iggul HaGadol, is the circle of the big sphere. Haseviv makif, that surrounds and encompasses. And in the future there'll be the unification of both levels, makif and pnimi. Like it says elsewhere, like it says that the kav, which only went down partially through the dark hole, the chol l'mokampani. Mashiach comes lasid, the kav will go all the way down to the bottom. The geiv adovuk, it will touch and be connected and cleave and attach itself. But Eidin Sof HaSeviv metachas elemis. In the big Eidin Sof HaSeviv, the Iggul HaGadol. So the kav only goes from the Iggul HaGadol like this. Lasid Lavi, through our Aveda, in this dark hole, the kav will go to the bottom. So you'll have the whole Iggul now shining everywhere. This way the Iggul HaGadol remains hovering. But once the kav touches the bottom and the top, basically light is everywhere now, equally, because there's no longer higher and lower.
How would before only go to Ak and stop?
No, where did
The tachtis of goes to the Atzilus, around Atzilus.
Around Atzilus?
It's around Ak, more or less.
It's different opinions, but there's the ha'ara of Ak, of the kav. There's Maimorim that speak about it. Basically called tachtis, sometimes malchus. In Tanya he brings it. So through this, when the kav goes to the bottom, it says, why can't the kav go in the beginning to the bottom? If it goes to the bottom, mathematically, you lose the whole inyan of Ma'alamata. Because what's high, a circle has no above and below. It's the kav that makes the gradations. Once the kav reaches the bottom, which is top, which is bottom? The bottom is just as powerful as the top, if there's a kav there. There's no kav, so the only ray of light, conscious ray of light, is the kav. This is the birur of containers. That's what the containers. The containers bring the makif light of the tzimtzum of the Iggul HaGadol. The bittul of the neshama only brings the light of Ak into existence.
A complete soveid, but we don't have a complete.
No, the kav gets more powerful through aved of and the Iggul HaGadol manifests in the whole existence. That's what I said before with the Ramban. That the Ramban says Tchiyas HaMesim will be also bodies. Because the birur of because when you mevar the body, you're also transforming the actual physical existence of this world. That's what he's talking about here. So that's when the gave a himself by and then through this the kav will have the revelation of the infinite divine light from Seviv Mamish, from the Seviv that surrounds it all.
It become makif all over. It's always so bad, but it's now become makif, which is internal.
No, it will become primi. That's what it means.
Yeah, but they should have. They said hasoviv umakif. So there's a difference. The makif is the
no. Proper purpose. There's no two separate meanings for the word. Seviv. No, but it's not 2 levels. It doesn't say such a thing.
There's 2 levels, 2 concepts.
One means surround, one means encompass.
Right,
they both are the same.
Exactly. So the encompassing would go all the way down. It's always so big, but the encompassing will come all the way down to Masiyah.
You could say the surrounding will also come down. We could say the same thing. And look into what it discusses in Yom Tov Shorosh, that's Ranat. And therefore, and that's why there will be the Yisrin, the advantage, the future. The body itself will be divine. This is through the revelation of the general makif, meaning thiru ilaah here. And you reach this through the bittul, the subjugation, sublimation, and the unification of specifically through the containers. So in other words, that's why I gave the example. Why did I give that whole example with the bread and so on? In the refinement of existence, in the refinement, there's Aveda that comes more like Aveda of Eir. Generally speaking, for example, Torah is more Torah Eir. Mitzvahs is usually speaking more Kalim. That's why mitzvahs are with physical items. Of course, mitzvahs also have kavanas of mitzvahs. And also there are mitzvahs that are more sublime mitzvahs, like Avos Hashem, Avos Yisrael. But the point being is, generally speaking, there's things that work with the containers, and there are things that work with it. You need both, obviously. Every mitzvah, kavanas ha-mitzvah is Eir, Maisa ha-mitzvah is Keli. But generally speaking, the bittul of the body, of the containers, and there's the bittul of the Eirs. So the bittul of the Eirs comes from Ak. It's more revealed. Remember, this is not revealed in the containers. You break the container through doing it. You have to fast. You have to offer it. The bittul spoken Ak is a revelation. It's a revelation of Kabbalah soil, of Amunah. We're not talking about Amunah here. It's spiritual, but there's a conscious experience of it. In Kalim, it's simply the Kali gives itself, either through like Akedah, or like he says, a carbon, or fasting, or anywhere where the body is giving itself something that the body is, and that reaches into the makif HaGadol, meaning the Iggul HaGadol, the makif before the tzimtzum. It's not over yet. He hasn't finished the discussion. He's just establishing. He just spoke about two impacts. Now he brought the impact of the second makif, the Iggul HaGadol, thiru ilaah, on existence. Remember, at the end of the day, Iggul HaGadol is still the root of mamala. There's not even real seviv yet. Just for the record, this is not true seviv. This has elements of seviv. Remember, he said real seviv, amiti, is kaidem alei saratzin. The real seviv. The 10 hidden spheres is the root of internal energy, not of transcendent energy. But for all practical purposes, this is all transcendent compared to existence, because they have in them. Remember, in the previous chapters, he said that pnimi is just an expression of the transcendent energy, just manifesting that way. So we're talking about the transcendent element in all of this. Kitzur. Because this is a critical point, because then you say, well, so what's really the difference? What about the bittul of the pnimi? What's the difference between bittul of pnimi and the makif? No, pnimi. I'm talking about what is the pnimi's impact on existence? Is it only to create, or also to? The answer is pnimi's impact is that it should be on our terms. All this is not on our terms. This is all amunah, bittul to the king, to the master. Fasting. What about the slapshus element, that it's on our terms? Remember, that is not makif. And that's where pnimi comes into play. In other words, you do have to have Kabbalah's elements. You don't just say Shema, you also say V'hayim Shemoya. You don't just say Nasa, you also have Nishma. He's not talking about that, however, now. I'm just putting it by contrast. That's already where you talk avodah that we own. Yeah. That's more on our terms. Here he's talking everything about how we leave our identities and identify with something beyond us.
We give it up.
Just for the record.
We give it up.
Huh?
We give it up.
Right. So this is the transcendent element. Okay. L'kitzur, amnam b'chinas thiru ilaah, sheyesh keich bittul b'kelim. However, amnam now, the level of thiru ilaah, and by contrast or in contrast, is the keich bittul, the power of sublimation of the containers. Or sheyesh batlu be'etzem uhusam, and that they should become sublimated in the fundamentally, in their essence, the sheir shakelim huma makif, because the root of the containers is from the transcendent energy. And that's why giving of the body specifically reaches atzmus ein sof. Then through the kav will have the gili of the revelation of the big sphere that precedes the kav. The body itself will be divine. This needs more explanation. I'll do that too, but basically he's fulfilling the picture. So remember, pnimi is related to our terms. This is all makif. This is all the impact of makif, not the impact of pnimi. But you ultimately want to have the combination of both. So we'll stop here. We did chapter 62, page 116 and 117.